some of us are going to not attend shul. I think that there are going to be some people, because of health concerns and age, won't attend shul. And so shofar will be different, in part because it's the piece of the service that will stick out much more, because we're not going to be being nourished as much from this lengthy and engaging framework. We're going to be largely rushing through it. So I wanted to be able to hold on to both the idea or the experiential frame of shofar, but also to actually allow people to learn how to do it for the following reason. And that is that some of us are going to need to blow it for our elders. Somebody's going to blow it for our grandparents. Somebody need to blow it for local members of the community. And we're going to need to know something that the baal tokeah is doing for us. So just to begin, I want to start with the kind of like the foundation of Tequila shofar. And so to do that, I'm going to share. So it's kind of well known that Rosh Hashanah, the name Rosh Hashanah, is actually rabbinic. It doesn't appear in the Torah. The Torah calls it Yom Truah. Later on, it's called Yom HaZikaron in rabbinic literature as well. It's not really kind of focused on its timing, meaning we know that it's the first day of the seventh month, but this sound has become central to what we understand the day to be about. And so I just want to give you like this, my framework for the three, like what I would consider the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot context that I think gives a framework for the entire period of Yomim Noraim, is that this is a kind of restoration a sequence that begins with a kind of demand that is like a wake-up call, that moves from the wake-up call to an act of contrition, and moves from the act of contrition to an act of reunification. And that if you would see, instead of Sukkot being part of the Chagim, Sukkot really is the end piece of what begins in Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the renewal of this relationship between God and Israel, in which the Jewish people are woken up to the fact that indeed there's a God in the world, and therefore because there's a God in the world and God is king, that things matter. So it's a kind of, I would say, a yearly, audit. And that yearly audit is portrayed both in the rabbinic literature and in the mystical literature as the scariest time of the year. The really threatening holiday is not Yom Kippur, but Rosh Hashanah, because it is the day in which we are called to actually account for ourselves and to determine, to some extent, how we're going to kind of move forward in the year. So the first piece of the Tequila shofar is this kind of frame of wake up. And the wake up frame is articulated even, in the rabbinic literature, but the best place that's articulated for us right now is the Rambam. Hold on, let me go down here. The Rambam says, Tequila shofar b'Rosh Hashanah gzerat hakatuv remez yeshbo klomar uru yisheni mishnatchem. Wake up, you sleepy heads. Hakitzu mitardamatchem v'chapsu b'masechem v'chizru b'tshuva v'zichru barachem. The claim is, and this is, it will appear later on in the Talmud in relation to Zichron Melt, is that religious life is easy to forget. It's easy to forget one's place in the world. It's easy to forget that there's a God in the world. And so for the beginning of this process is a wake-up call. And so the first frame of Rosh Hashanah is to remember. And what remembering means is that I take stock of myself and my behaviors, and I accept that they are meaningful, that things mattered. I think the most the easiest way to get lost in life is to not know if what you do matters. And so when God is king, when we remember God to be king, when God rises on the throne to be king, then all of a sudden, everything I've done comes to matter because someone is watching and taking stock. It's both threatening, but there's this other thing that it does, is it actually makes who we are important. In other words, when we crown God king, we end up defining our own identities as of significance. So the first kind of role of Rosh Hashanah, or the Tequila Shofar, is this wake-up call that claims, there's a God in the world who is watching, and actually all that I did matters. And therefore, the first piece of the Tequila Shofar is this wordless sense of terror, awe, and the affirmation of divine kingship. And when God is king, then we become responsible for our own lives. In other words, if there's a king in the world then who unifies all existence, then I am going to be responsible for my life. So the first frame I want to bring to the day is this kind of frame of things mattering. I think that that's the beginning of moral life, is that I'm someone's watching, and someone's watching who cares, and I can actually change. So I think that's the beginning. I want to move from this kind of frame that the Rambam gives us to why we do the 100 kolot, because you might think it's a Yom Teruah, you just blow it once. There are 3 verses in the Torah that mention Teruah. So from that, Chazal understand that you're supposed to blow 3 times. The word shofar is used before and after the word Teruah in Leviticus. And so they learn from this that you need a blast that is simple, and then you need a Teruah that is broken, and then you need a blast that is simple. The reason they learn that Teruah is broken is from a really beautiful parallel in the Gemara to Ein Sisra, which some of you might remember. Okay. So take a look at the Gemara. The order of the blasts is 3. Tokeah, Teruah, Tequila. And it's 3 sets of 3. And the reason is that we really have to do 3 Teruot, but the Tequila in the beginning and the end, we're going to learn in the Gemara, come because of the word shofar, which appears on both sides of the word Teruah in that verse. And the length of a Tequila is equal to the length of 3 Teruot. So the Tequila is long, and it's 3 times as long as the Teruot. And the length of the Teruah is each Teruah is 3 times as long as the length of a whimper, which is now the Gemara's term for what we will be calling Teruot. Indeed, the 3 Teruot in the Mishnah is really Shvarim, and then the 3 times 3, the 9 sounds are the Teruah. Abaye says, it is a day Yom Teruah lachem. It's a day of Teruah for you. Yom Teruah lachem etargaminan Yom Yevava. So the Gemara now, for some strange reason, decides that it needs an Aramaic translation, and the Aramaic translation that appears is Yevava, and actually it's used in Hebrew in very few places. One of them is that when the mother of Sisra is wailing for her son, who's now been killed by Yael in the battle against Israel, she looks forth from the window and wails, Vayit Yabev. The whole line is Vayit Yabev Em Sisra. And the sages hold that this means the moanings, or one sage holds, no, it doesn't mean moanings, it means whimpers. And so we have the following scenario, is that we've got a Teruah, which is an open blast, almost like announcing, okay, listen up, something's coming. Then we have this cry, which is identified as either a groan or a whimper, and then another Teruah, which is an open sound. That shapes 3 sounds. Tequila, trua, tequila. The problem is that we now have two definitions of tequila, of trua. It's either a groan, or a whimper, like a sobbing. And because we don't know, or because the rabbis love the idea of, of being yotzei kol hadeot, I think that probably historically it had to do with the fact that some communities did a groan and other communities did a whimper, that they wanted to unify it. And so it, of course, then, emerged into three sets of three. One is, tequila shvarim, tequila. One is tequila truash, tequila, and the other is tequila shvarim trua tequila. And so there you have the 30 blasts. The reason that, and by the way, those 30 blasts are deoraita. There is really, in other words, if there is a deoraita definition, then it's those 30 that fulfill the mitzvah deoraita. It is repeated at least two, and you'll see two in a bit, two more times. And that's because the numbers of letters in Sistra's mother's wail is 100 or 101. And so because, by the way, I tried to count the numbers of the letters and it didn't seem to, I couldn't get it to be 100 or even 101.
Someone said she cried 101 times.
Well, no, it's just that the letters of her cry are 100 or 101. So we tried to mimic Sistra's mother's cry. So the other piece of this is really kind of fascinating, is that the shofar is our being called to account to God who is taking his throne. The accountant is up and we have to ask ourselves, we've been watched. This life matters. Everything matters. God created it for us to actually do stuff here. Well, how have we done? So the call is a call to call us to come to court. But it's also a call for our response to the court. And what's our response? The human brokenness that is part of what it means to be human, that is in part an explanation about why we might not have achieved as much as we've hoped, and in part an accusation. An accusation that is, as much as God demands of us, our lives are more painful than we can often bear. And so we call back to God in a certain way, asking God to account for the difficulty of human life. The shofar is a kind of wordless prayer. It's called in the mystical literature the exile of words. It's a scenario, if you would have to compare it, Rosh Hashanah is the wordless ritual, and Yom Kippur is full of words, like, Chui machem dvarim, come to me with words and tell me your story and explain yourself and actually say the words of vidui. Tell me say what's wrong, what went wrong. And then Sukkot is deeds. It's like do things that unify and that fix. So I would say Rosh Hashanah, in particular the shofar, is this wordless communication of God calling us to take stock and consider like everything we do meaningful, like basically calling us to meaning and the demands of that, us calling to God and saying, boy, this is really hard. And life hurts, and we need you to hear us. And so between these two frames, there's I would say if you wanted to, add one more, I would say that, the Zohar offers another portrayal. So yes, the first is wake up and, take yourself seriously. And the second is God, take us seriously. And the third is our engagement with the divine that helps like the divine energy flow. We, according to the Zohar, our shofar is a technology by which, when God is in the courtroom and hearing the Sitra Achra challenge us, is a way of pushing through and actually breaking up the resistance to, I would say, God's love and God's compassion. Reb Shimon Berebi, Rabbi Elazar Brei, Reb Shimon and Rabbi Elazar Brei, this is the Zohar talking about this, the way in which the Zohar understands wisdom is that it comes when you take walks and you meet old men. So, and anyway, Havu Azli Ba'orcha, they were going on their way. The Havu Azli, the Ir Ubachad Saba, and they came and happened upon an old man. And the old man had this, again, as a grandchild, a young child in his hands. And basically, the old man is saying, I'm a hermit. I'm filling in here. I'm a hermit. I usually live in the desert where I fight the Sitra Achra. But, because all goodness comes out of wrestling with the other side, with basically, as the Zohar understands it, too much judgment leads to evil. And so the righteous have to actually contend with too much judgment. And so he's out in the midbar fighting, the Sitra Achra, but on Rosh Hashanah, the Sitra Achra, the other side, the demonic side, is so powerful, he cannot be alone and must be in community. And he says he's coming in order to pray with the Jews, in order to be part of their community. Sitra Achra, kaima klipa takifa. The Sitra Achra makes this shell around Bina, around the moon, which basically is the symbol of all the light and all the force of goodness, the overflow of divine energy coming to us. The Sitra Achra on Rosh Hashanah covers it over. In fact, that's Bekeseh Liyom Chagenu, in that covering of the moon on our holiday. And so the danger of Rosh Hashanah is that God's mercy is covered over. The flow of God's giving is covered over, because that's what allows for judgment to happen. In other words, what is judgment? God says, is creation worth it? Was it worth it? Was this entire enterprise worth it? I need to assess, to judge. I need to, I need an accounting. That is the Sitra Achra, is absolute judgment. And it can't be broken. There's no way for this covering over of the moon, the klipa, to be broken. Except from the advice, the counsel of the Holy One, who gives to Israel, blow the shofar on this, on this covering over on this holiday. Begin ditavru kise di it chafne sira. You're going to break through with the shofar the covering of the moon, v'lo nahir, that stops it from shining forward. V'kadmit ari Yisrael letata b'shofar, and Israel blows the shofar from below. Haukal denafik mishofar, the voice that comes out of the shofar, batash bi'avira, it strikes the avira, air, but really like the firmament around the moon, uvakari kikin, and it breaks through the firmaments, adisalka gabehu tinra takifa, tinar takifa, until it breaks through to this great light. The great stone, the covering that covers the moon, the ashkach it aruta derachme, and all the mercy flows forth. So Rosh Hashanah is this frame of judgment that leads to joy. And that's why if we say Gilu B'Ada, that, what really creates joy is purpose, is meaning, is feeling useful, is feeling that one returned to oneself and is doing what one was built to do. And in order to do that, there has to be a king who made you, and you have to be able to open your heart to that king, both with tears And ultimately then with Aseret Simei Tshuva and the words that will come on Yom Kippur to actually do the work of Yom Kippur. I think of Yom Kippur really largely as self-therapy. Rosh Hashanah is facing the music, is facing the truth, is facing the truth that we're held accountable, and that the things we do really matter. How we treat people really matters. That we didn't call up and say thank you really matters. That we don't, dig deeply in relationship and in mitzvot really matters. And it also matters that God really receives us, and that we are open, and we open our hearts and share our broken hearts. So anyway, that's the secret, I think, of the shofar. It kind of breaks through in both these directions. And now we're going to hear a little bit from Steve about the technique of how to blow the shofar. And we'll finish with a little conversation at the end about what questions still remain for you, either technical or otherwise, about the shofar.
So I will talk, I guess, a little bit. I will, hopefully I can give you some sort of hints about blowing. Here, the first thing I will say is what kind of shofar is important. So these are both shofar. This is a beautiful ibex or something. Ibex is totally kosher. This is your classic ram's horn. Traditionally on Rosh Hashanah we use one that's bent because we're in the act of contrition. We only would use this for the end of Yom Kippur when we're all clean and happy and on our way to having some bagels and lox. But this is hopefully standing upright, and now we feel good. But you traditionally wouldn't use something like that, even though it's kosher. I might show you a little bit of stuff on that because it's kind of easier to see. Who doesn't really, do people know how to blow a shofar at all or not at all? Okay. The sound of the shofar is really, well, here's something actually that Steve, a couple of things that I just want to add as a baal tokeah about what it feels like to blow a shofar is that the idea that it's a wordless prayer, and that I actually really like, is that it's an equalizer. You don't have to be learned to hear the shofar.
Or to blow it.
Or to blow it. But the idea is to hear the sound. There's no learning. You are there to just experience. It's experiential, and that's the prayer. It's a prayer that is of a blank slate. And I thought about this also for the first time, is that the reason why it's tequila, shofar and tequila, you always have the shofar, the sound, the shofar again, is to say, here it is, here's the shofar, this is what we're going to do with it, I'm going to cry with it, and then show you it's the shofar again. It's a sort of always encompassing, it's like, this is the thing, this is the thing, every time. So, let me talk about just technique-wise. Blowing a shofar, the sound is coming from your lips, vibrating. So if everybody does this, that's the same sound you're going to make. You can put your finger on it to kind of keep your lips together. It's like when you would do it if you had a balloon and you let the air out of a balloon, and you pull the rubber the end of the balloon. That vibrating, that's the sound. It doesn't take a lot of air. So I'm actually going to use the straight one because it's easier to blow. But if I go, you see that sound. I'm not blowing very well right now, but I'm trying to show you that sound. That vibration is the sound that's making it. It's not a lot of air going into it. It's actually very little air. It's really just the vibration of your lips. So some people like to hold it, like a finger to the lips, try to hold it. I don't need to. I don't think it's actually helpful. But pushing with enough pressure on your lips, and then just doing that same sound, your lips on the outside, it's that connection. Can I hear people? Yeah, so what I can hear, Jeff, a little bit is like there's air coming out of the sides of your lips as well. Without seeing it, it sounds like there is. So you really want to keep your lips tight. That sounds better. Sounds clearer. Yeah. So reason why I should be honest. The reason why I'm an easy shofar baal tokeah is that I was a trumpet player for many years. It's the same. It's the same thing. There is a certain amount of support you have to have down here. You have to stand straight so that you can feel support. If you try to do this like that, you're not going to be able to blow shofar. You have to stand straight, and halakhically you should be standing straight anyway. But the idea is that you're holding enough pressure in your core to actually keep the pressure behind the lips. So that's easy. This sound, I'll go back to a regular shofar here. And then those kind of things at the end of a tokeah is just extra air, extra pressure. You're actually making a sound through the instrument itself, through the shofar itself.
I just want to add that there's some personality here that can be different. It's totally cool to have a tokeah that is one note. And there's advantage there because you don't get tripped up as easily if you're going to kind of start and stop. But you can do it in a way in which people sometimes do. Right, you can go up in the end, and that's perfectly fine.
How's it working on people learning how to blow it? Can I hear Labe?
It's like
that's
it's
right.
like different. Is there a way to hold it?
No. The only way to hold it when you're actually about tokeah, you should hold it with the opening going up. That's an important thing it's a
like
halakhic,
this.
whatever. It's a yeah.
You really want? I'm not doing. It's not good.
Let me see.
You're not being judged. You're not being judged.
Okay. Let me hear it again. Okay. So I think your lips are actually too tight. So loosen them up a little bit. No, seriously. No, just where you're trying to squeeze them too tight.
No, when it's looser, it doesn't work as well.
Okay. That sounds right.
That's great. It's some of this is just practice.
There are different.
You need to try to do it, for 20 minutes a day, because you'll strengthen your lips.
Different shofar have different sounds too. This has a totally different sound. I happen to like this one that I bought in LA a long time ago because it's actually easy to blow. But it sounds fine.
Yeah, I got it at the end. That last one was good.
You did. And listen, and it's practice too. Do you want to talk about anyone else have the shofar that want to give it a shot?
Okay, so you need to create more tension in your lips. And I put it on you put it on more on the outside of your lip, not let me put it on I'm really curling my lips in. Okay, let me see the front, the mouthpiece of that. Okay, try it again. Let me hear. Yeah. Can you do this, Aaron? Can you just do this? Yeah, that sounds right. So that's basically the same thing. You have to maybe give it some more oomph behind the shofar. Try it again. Give it more.
No, it feels better.
We'll do it till
Yeah. Hey, Aaron. I got some ideas, but we're gonna meet separately.
Also, Aaron, it may be that that's just a hard shofar to blow, and you might want to experiment with smaller, more.
I don't think the smaller ones doesn't really matter. Okay. No, large ones are easy.
What about Jeff? Jeff,
Can we give it a try over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is. You said it should go upward, but the lip thing. If
it's fine. I just you don't have it bang.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, good. I think I have an easy shofar. Mara wants to try. I mean, she's been doing it a lot, but let's see.
Sounds great.
Thanks. All right.
Sounds great.
Thank you. That was
okay. So let me talk about the calls. So you have tequila, shvarim, tequila. Your shvarim should be the same length as your tekiot when you have that pattern. So the 3 shvarim should be 1 tequila. So it should sound something like this. See, the length of the tequila and the shvarim should be the same. The same thing with shvar, same thing with tua. It should be all the same. Hold on. I do 9 breaks in the tua. So I'm really literally counting in my head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even during the tequila. Okay? When it gets to tequila, shvarim tua tequila, again the same thing. Tequila and the shvarim tua all have to be the same. So shvarim tua has to be the same length as your tequila. So your tequila for those calls has to be a little longer. Make sense? So that one. So it actually has to take that much time.
Was that clear?
If the tekiot are too short before them, it's actually not. It's not proper. It's not proper.
In other words, if it's a regular tekiah and then a shvarim, so the tekiah is 3 beats and each shvarim is 1 beat. So it's da ba 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 da. But if it's trua, then it's instead of 3 beats in the middle, it's 9. So, but if you then do shvarim trua, then you're going to need the tekiah in the beginning to be that much longer.
Basically 6 beats of tekiah, 3 of shvarim, 3 sets of 3 for trua, and 6 again for tekiah. Does that make sense? So it's wah, then wah, 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 and then wah. It should be that long, the tekiah in that section. So the one other I would say custom. I don't know if it's actually. I think it might be a halakha, but certainly custom. That you don't breathe between the shvarim tua that you do in the early part before Musaf. When you do the calls before Musaf, you don't breathe between those combined calls. So you do tekiah, you breathe, shvarim tua, breathe, tekiah. Later on in Musaf, when you in Malchut Shofar and Zichronot, you actually do a break between the shvarim tua in the middle. So you breathe, tekiah, breathe, shvarim, catch a quick breath, tua, another breath, tekiah. For some reason, there's a custom to break them there. I don't know why, but there is. But you should not break them in the early part, because those ones are really one type of call, and they really want to make it seem, like it's only one. It's the shvarim tua is actually its own thing. It's not made of 2 separate things. It's its own thing. If that makes sense.
Actually, the 2 different things have been articulated by different, commentators. That the shvarim is is old pain. It's the groans of old pain, and the trua, which is the more staccato, is new pain, is the sobbing of a person in the midst of immediate pain, and then the shvarim trua in the middle is someone who's like actually experiencing both at the same time.
There's also something else that strikes me about shofar, which is really remarkable in some ways, is that the shofar itself can't be adorned, right? You're allowed to actually carve in it. That's allowed. You can't put things on it. You can't cover it in silver. You can't decorate it with extra pieces. That's not allowed, and it has to be whole. I mean, carved out obviously, but it can't be cracked. It can't have a hole in it. So it's got to be in a sort of natural state. And there's a sense of shofar which is like the eighth day after Shabbat, it's like handed over to man. This is the natural thing. What we do with it is we communicate with the divine through it, to say, we're sorry, here's my pain, we want to make it better. We're crowning you king, therefore be our king. You have responsibility now. So, and so that the idea of both of the two worlds coming together is very embodied inside blowing shofar.
The other two metaphors that I just think are worth bringing up, because they come up in Malchuyot, Shofar, and Zichronot and all that, is that this is, it's also Har Sinai being brought to the story. It's also the Mashiach,
which is another time that the worlds came together.
Being brought to the story. When I thinking, if you want a kavanah for the tekiyot, it's the kavanah. My mom once described what it was like for her in the rain, waiting for John Kennedy and his cavalcade to come up Main Street in Columbus, Ohio, and the crowd waiting in bated silence for the king to appear. At the time, the president. But that there's some sense of awe in that first one, whereas the shvarim and the kiyot they're really going up. They're really actually an articulation of the human. They are prayer going up. Anybody have any thoughts? Will anybody be required to blow for a family member or friends or community members, and you need more help? If you do, I think that both Steve and I would be willing to sit with you privately and do that. Any other thoughts?
There is the covering of the crown in the era of COVID-19.
Yes.
The OU has, or maybe not, other organizations have recommended that a mask should be put on if you're going to be in a closed space, in order not to disseminate droplets.
Right. Well, I'm not a doctor.
Wouldn't normally do anything like that to enhance the shofar in any way, but it has been recommended unless you're in an outdoor space.
Yeah, I think outdoor you're fine. I actually don't think that much. So here's an interesting thing. I teach opera at the conservatory here, and so singing is obviously the big bugaboo with COVID. It's a problem. Not as much as yelling is, but singing is certainly high up there. And woodwind playing, of all things, is actually problematic, but brass is not as much. And I think that
why is that?
I think it's just the way that sound is produced in woodwinds. You're actually sending a lot more air through the piece, and you're vibrating in woodwind. You're vibrating the reed against something else, but I think it's just the way the air goes. For brass instruments, of which this would be considered, it's the same production as brass. The vibration, you're not sending so much air through the thing itself. So there might be some droplets, but I don't know if there's so much aerosol coming through. But indeed, if they say if you're going to be inside a closed space and the OU says you should cover it, I think it sounds like a great idea. I don't think we're not blowing, we're only blowing outside. So you should certainly. I didn't look at the OU for that or what the story is, but I'm sure if they just saying that they saw it, that's great.
I had this fantasy that the queer from community would marshal 100 shofar blowers to travel all around our communities where we are and to blow shofar for old age homes and for indigent people and people kind of not coming to shul. Obviously it's not that simple to do such a thing, but if you have the opportunity to offer someone to blow, it's say the bracha for a person who hasn't even, and you blow 30 blows. You don't have to blow 100. You the normal thing here in shul in the very beginning, that's what you blow.
And then the fourth set, that's a combination of them all. Yeah.
No. It's simply tashrat, tashat, tarat. That's it. 30 blows to do just tequila, shvarim trua, tequila, shvarim, tequila, trua, tequila. Done.
You do that.
For midoraita, that's all you need to do. For anybody, 30 blows is enough.
Because that's tequila, shvarim, tequila, right?
Right.
That's you do 3 sets of those.
Right.
27.
Right. Steve is right.
Then you do 3 sets of tequila, trua, tequila.
Right.
That's another 9.
No. Yes.
Right. That's 18. Then you do 3 sets of tequila, shvarim, trua, tequila. That makes 27. And then the last 3 that you do to bring you 30 is tequila, shvarim, tequila.
Tequila, shvarim, trua, tequila, shvarim, tequila, and tequila, trua, tequila. But in any case,
follow the machzor.
Follow the machzor, but you don't need 100 blows. The thing I wanted to make clear is that you don't need 100 blows. You need 30.
Great. I just want to make sure that if anyone has any questions, they can ask them.
But
I have a question.
Okay.
Are there some shofars that are easier to blow than others if you're going to go buy one?
Right. Yes. Now the problem is that you used to go into a Jewish bookshop that sells shofarot and etrogim and all that. Try them out. My suspicion is that they will not. It's kind of hard. What I would suggest is that don't buy the least expensive shofar. Don't buy the smallest shofar. But I would say something anywhere between something that looks like this, which is okay, and it's okay to blow. This is a bit easier to blow. I would prefer not getting something bigger than this because they end up becoming more unwieldy.
Yeah, the long kudzu, the long antelope ones are not they're not easier or harder to blow, to be honest. They're prettier. They're beautiful, but it's a lot to carry around as well.
Okay.
But they might allow you to blow inside some stuff. I would imagine not. Probably. I don't know. But yes, they are different. The smaller they are, the harder they are to blow, for sure. Because you need, it's a very high pitch. Like in terms of I can play different pitches on this, but smaller shofars that you have to have so much pressure inside to make a pitch.
Okay.
It's a very high pitch.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Anyone else?
That was helpful.
Hope that was helpful. I want to just again offer that Jeff and Aaron and anyone else, Leib, anyone else that wants to learn, we're very happy to sit with you and work with you about this, with this. And I'm just want to finish with one quick thought, and there is this this role that Rosh Hashanah plays as starting a sequence of experiences, and we often think that we go to shul and we allow shul to do most of the work for us. I think that there's something to say for for us this year. We're going to need to spend a little bit more internal time to make Rosh Hashanah meaningful. We're not going to have the big family gatherings as easily, and we're not going to have the big shul experience as easily. And the question is that an opportunity for us to find time to contemplate and to use the day in a way internally that it was meant to be used for? Might this space that, might there be yet another silver lining? We keep finding silver linings in this moment. And might this be a silver lining in which we dive a little bit deeper into the, by really asking ourselves what might we be able to change? What do we need to wake up to? Where have we been sleeping? And to really, open ourselves up to the possibility that God's mercy is always present as long as we connect to who we truly are. So with that, if there's anybody that wants to be in touch, please do. And have a Gemara Chatima and Chativa Tova. And you want to say anything?
No, I just want to say I did look it up. So just how it works, the 30 blasts, is that the first set actually is 12 because it's Tequila, Shvarim, Teruah, Tequila. So that each one of those is 4. So you have 3 sets of that. That's 12. Then it's Tequila, Shvarim, Tequila. That's 9. So brings you to 21. And then you need to make up 9 more, and that's made up of Tequila, Teruah, Tequila, Tequila, Teruah, Tequila, Tequila, Teruah, Tequila. So that's the extra 9. So that brings you to a total of 30.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. This was great. I just want to draw people's attention to the chat. Labe has put in the chat, thank you, Labe, where you can buy a shofar, and Eshel will get a donation from the vendor. So check it out. Jay Levine and Kolbo in Brookline, Mass.
Kolbo's a great place.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can buy other things as well and get the discount.
You can buy
anything you buy Judaica, in either place, will give Eshel a little bit of support. Okay.
Thank you.
Tova, thank you very much.
Tova, everybody.